right, I think what we're going to get started right now. I'm Howie Foreman. I'm the program director for the MPH MBA program at the Yale School of Management and the Yale School of Public Health at Yale University. I'm joined here with three of our current students, all three in the graduating class of 2022, I guess. Two of our students here are in the two-year accelerated program. One of them is in the three-year plus program in the MPH and MBA program. And we'll go through the introductions in just a minute. I just want to lay out a little bit about format. Please do send your questions to any of us as we go. I'm going to try to moderate the questions. I want to make sure that by the end of this hour, that we've answered all of your questions about the program. This will be online, and so some of you that aren't able to attend today will be listening to this in the future, obviously, and you can reach out to all of us. And I think all of us are first name dot last name convention for Yale. Ben, are you first name Ben.Engler?
Yep, that's right.
And Hill, is it Hill, HIL.Moss?
HIL.Moss, yeah.
Good. So we're all first name dot last name convention at Yale. So it's howard.foreman@yale.edu, and the others the same way. You can feel free to email us at any time. One of the best features of the program is that I don't have a single student, either present or past, who I worry about you speaking to. I think the best thing you can do about making a decision about coming to Yale is to talk to our current or former students. And if you don't find that one of us in this room can answer the questions relevant to you, we'll connect you to somebody else as well. I'm just going to say a couple of words over a couple of minutes about the program, and then I'm going to open it up with questions for our panel. The accelerated program is about 8 years old right now, and it admits somewhere between 2 and 8 people a year. It varies considerably. When you're admitted to the two-year accelerated program, you have the option of doing the three-year program as well, and some people choose that option. Do not think that you have to make the decision about 2 versus 3 right now. You can apply to the two-year program and still choose to do the three-year program if you want to, and I'm happy to answer questions and explain why one or the other might be right for you at a given time. The accelerated program does not come with a free lunch. Or there are some free lunches, but there is no real free lunch with the two-year program. It is a very rigorous program that allows you to achieve the full core curriculum of the Yale School of Public Health and the full core curriculum of the Yale School of Management, and allows you to take a sufficient number of electives to complete the degree requirements for both schools. But you do have a very limited number of electives that you're allowed to do. And that means that you are making some sacrifice in the, quote, liberalness of your education. You only get to do 1 internship instead of 2 internships. You have to start the summer before. Those are the trade-offs that you have to make to do the two-year program. Having said that, about 70 or 80% of the people who are given the option choose the two-year program over the three-year option, obviously because it has a small financial savings and it has a slightly larger, I think, time savings for individuals. And we understand why that's important to people. The three-year program can be approached through 2 different pathways. One is the one that I've just described. You're admitted to the two-year program and you choose the three-year program instead. And the other option is what Hill Moss has done, and she'll tell you a little more about that. And that is where you start either in the School of Public Health or the School of Management, and then you decide that you would like to do the joint degree program. At that point, you can only do the three-year program, and we do everything we can to facilitate that process. And again, I'll let, when Hill talks about her own personal path, she'll tell you a little more about what that means. We're very proud of the program. We're also proud of the fact that the admissions process and the requirements are just as rigorous as they are for students that are in one school only. For some people, that may be frustrating to recognize that you will be applying to the School of Public Health and the School of Management completely independently. There's not one application. I don't make apologies for that. That's the way that we're able to independently assess you. It does not mean we're not trying to keep track of you in both schools. So we do have Maria Jurla-Panska, who's not on this call today, though, is the primary point of contact in the School of Management, and Mary Keefe is the primary point of contact at the School of Public Health, trying to keep track, and we do a reasonably good job of knowing who our applicants are who are applying for both degree programs at once. I'm going to pause here and allow our three graduating students to introduce themselves, talk about their personal arc, where they came from before they entered our program, what they've gotten to do both in the school as well as in their internship, and what their plans are upon graduation. I know that's a lot to ask you to do in just one bucket, but let's try to do that. And I'm going to go in the order that I have on my screen. So I'm going to go Ritesh, Melanie, and Hill.
All right. I think you meant Ben, so I'll go first.
Sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
This is like my facial recognition thing. Sorry, Ben.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Engler. I'm a second year in the accelerated program. I was originally, I was in New York prior to coming to grad school. I was working as a healthcare consultant. I was sponsored by my previous employer. So I was making a decision about where to go to business school and thought that a dual degree option would be a good way to explore my interest in healthcare. And specifically, I had experience in the private sector doing work with providers in pharmaceuticals, but I really was interested in gaining more of the healthcare policy lens. So that was a big motivation for me to come join the dual degree program. To that end, I've had the opportunity to intern this past summer and still currently this semester at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which has been a great opportunity to explore my interest in the public sector and gain some real world kind of practical experience there. I will be returning full-time back to healthcare consulting for a couple of years, but my goal kind of longer term is to do more policy work. So yeah, that's kind of a brief summary. Happy to answer any questions about that path or my experience in general.
You want to just mention also, because it's no longer private information, what you got to do in the first summer as well?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't sure if I should mention that, but I got, Howie, I talked to him right when I joined the program about my interest in kind of healthcare policy, and he was working on a committee with the Biden campaign, doing work, kind of developing their COVID policy and putting together briefs for their health policy committee. So I got to do some really interesting work right when I started, kind of in the summer leading up to, and then through the fall semester up until the election. So that was a really great opportunity to kind of explore policy from that lens as well.
Yeah, that was an exciting time. So
It was.
And we still appreciate all the efforts that you made for that. Melanie, whose name I get right, because at least I'm checking names now.
Great, thanks, Howie. Similar to Ben, I started in the 2-year accelerated program in my second year. Before coming to school, I worked in healthcare consulting out of college with both payers and providers. And then more recently was working in operations at a telehealth company. Really decided to go to school to, accelerate my career forward within that healthcare management space. So wanted to get a little bit more operational and financial modeling experience on the SOM side. I came from a liberal arts background undergrad. And then from the MPH perspective, I had a lot of experience more in kind of the private insurance market, but wanted to really round out my healthcare education and get really up to speed on some areas and have the opportunity to delve deeper in areas I was interested in. One of those areas for me in particular is value-based care and alternative payment models. So, to that end, I'll be pursuing that in some capacity after graduation. This summer, I worked at Optum in their corporate leadership program, specifically on their genomics team as they think about what their precision medicine strategy is, actually developing some risk-based models there for better financing and access to diagnostic testing. So it was a really fun project. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And Hill?
Yeah, thanks, Howie, and hi, everyone. I'm Hill. I am, as Howie mentioned, a third year in the 3-year dual MBA, MPH, and had a bit of an unconventional path. I actually spent many years working in arts and entertainment as a strategy and innovation consultant for cultural organizations, and started at SOM back in 2018 as a full-time MBA, fully intending to stay in the entertainment industry, and ended up switching into healthcare after being diagnosed with breast cancer in my first year of school. And while on leave, becoming very active in the cancer world. By the time I returned to graduate school, I just realized that my interests had fundamentally changed. And so ended up adding the MPH. I knew that I could get a great education on the basics of business in healthcare from SOM, but I wanted to really do my homework on systemic forces and disparities. And so the MPH was really wonderful for that. You know, as Howie mentioned, one of the advantages of a 3-year is you do get 2 summers. So my first summer was spent at Hologic, which is a medical technology company, and my second at Thrive, a company in early cancer detection, as well as Amwell in telemedicine. And you know, a couple of my main focuses while here have been our healthcare conference, which I'm happy to chat about. It's a wonderful organization. And I'm also focusing on entrepreneurship and launching a company upon graduation. So happy to answer any questions about that curriculum.
And it's a good time at this moment to mention that the school the school management, I should say, has a long-standing foundation in social enterprise and not-for-profit management. You know, when I started working with the School of Management about 23 years ago, it was just a couple of years after they had transitioned from having what was called the MPPM degree, the Masters of Public and Private Management, to the Masters of Business Administration degree. And even though they changed the degree title, they've never changed their commitment to being of service to society. It's not just about being of service to business or leadership, it's about responsibility to society. And it's always nice to see that our students really continue to embrace that, both in the jobs that they take, as well as in the activities they do while they're in the school. I'm going to start answering some of the questions and asking some of you to help me answer those questions. So the first question is, the MPH in the joint degree, is it a general degree or is it an MPH in a specific concentration? All 3 of you are doing your MPH in healthcare management. I'm hopeful that maybe one of you knows some of our students that do a different concentration. We do have them. They're not directly reporting to me, but we do have students that apply for a different concentration and the MBA program. And while that is not a dual accelerated, you can't do it in 2 years, you can do that in 3 years. So if somebody in our listening audience, for instance, felt really committed to learning biostatistics or chronic disease epidemiology or emerging and microbial diseases at the School of Public Health, you could do that with the School of Management in a 3-year degree that would be more akin to the format that Hill has done. The caveat to that is that those degrees do tend to have a thesis requirement, and it can be a little bit more difficult to negotiate that. But by having 3 years, you can definitely do it. And if somebody wanted to pursue that, we could connect you with somebody who's completed that degree. I don't know if any of the 3 of you want to comment on that before I move on.
No, I'm grabbing coffee later today with someone who is dual degree with a concentration in policy. But I know she's really been enjoying the dual, so definitely out there.
No, so it is absolutely an option. One of the advantages to doing the HCM degree, the healthcare management degree, as part of your dual is it gives you a lot more flexibility because the requirements for HCM and the requirements for the MBA do overlap. And that's how we're allowed to do the 2-year degree. If you do it in 3 years, you theoretically could take extra classes in different concentrations without having to restrict yourself to only one thing. The next question is, can I know about the opportunities offered by MPH to those who are interested in mental health? So I can tell you that like a good example of that is that one of my mentees has just taken on a job in Texas to be chief medical officer of a large federally qualified mental health center. And she is actively recruiting from our students to be her chief of staff, which will really be an administrative fellowship in mental health, but functioning as her chief of staff. We have students that have worked in the sort of med tech space for mental health, which is very vast. And to some degree, I mean, Hill's startup has overlap with mental health because the issues around survivorship, either after cancer or after treatment of any chronic illness, have overlap with mental health. I don't know, Hill, if you want to comment a little about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is where I will say, so as Howie mentioned, a big focus of my company is going to be actually delivering targeted mental health care to survivors of critical illness. And I have just been amazed with the resources, both in the public health school, but also at Yale New Haven, of folks who are really thinking in really interesting ways about rethinking mental health care and digital health. And, there is a great amount of resources when you are an MPH that you can be connected to actually in the Yale New Haven health system at large. Lots of interesting opportunities.
Thank you. Before I move on to another question, I know you've each touched on some of the activities you've been involved in at YSPH and SOM, but each of you has had sort of very deep experiences at both schools. And so let me go in reverse order this time, starting with Hill and ending with Ben. But Ben, if you don't want to talk about your experiences, you could talk about Ritesh's experiences and completely throw me off further. I'll continue to feel shamed about this mistake. But let's go in that order. We'll go Hill, Melanie, and Ben to talk about sort of what was the one or two biggest experiences that you've become invested in while you were at Yale University.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about investment of time and energy and particularly experiences, I have to chat about the Yale Healthcare Conference. So the Yale Healthcare Conference, which Howie oversees, is really kind of the signature Yale University healthcare event. It is coordinated by the students and led by the students across the schools of management, public health, medicine, nursing. And for me, it has just been such a wonderful way to really kind of demonstrate the interconnectedness of all of these schools across Yale. I feel like I have really gotten to know folks from across the community and really think about healthcare in very different ways. This year, we're focused in particular on patient-centered innovation, and that means everything from thinking about patient-centered medicine through precision medicine to patient-centered care through virtual care. And we are privileged to have a very wonderful executive advisory board of folks from across the industry that we get to interface with on a regular basis, who guide us, who connect us to amazing people. And it is actually based in April. So if anyone's interested in attending, there should be some really dynamic conversations, but definitely been a highlight of my time.
Melanie.
Yeah, this is a hard question. So I'm going to pick two, one on the kind of School of Public Health side and one on the SOM side, if that's all right. So I think one experience I really enjoyed and has been a great experience on the School of Public Health side is doing a practicum last spring. You're able to, gain practical work experience through an in-semester internship that has, academic credit counting towards your MPH degree. And I was able to work at a subsidiary of Yale New Haven Hospital at Northeast Medical Group in their value-based care department, knowing that's been an area of interest, for me, both on the MPH side as well as, my business degree. It was a really excellent way to, spend, 5 to 6 months working elbow to elbow with practitioners of this work. And it's very much like refined a lot of kind of professionally the areas that I'm really passionate about, and is able to work on how they're thinking about implementing a team-based care model. So that was really fun. And I think on, the School of Management side, to speak a little bit more to the integrated curriculum, I've had the opportunity to work through YCCI, Yale Center for Customer Insights, on a new program that they're developing on stakeholder capitalism, where we think about creating value for a variety of stakeholders, not just the shareholders of organizations. So it's been a really interesting opportunity to work with leadership teams from Fortune 500 companies. We've done interviews with, the CEO of Starbucks. We met with a product officer of Target. And, as I think how it relates to my interests in healthcare, we're thinking about who are the stakeholders that derive, value creation. And we were able to speak with someone at CVS about their vaccine distribution and how that has been overlaid with health equity goals of the organization. So it's been a really nice way to, gain broad exposure across a bunch of different industries, but also find areas for me to circle back to that kind of focus on my particular area of interest.
Ben?
Yeah, so I guess I've had the opportunity both years to do some part-time work during the semester. So last year I worked with Howie and Melanie actually on a leadership development committee for Yale New Haven Hospital. So I was on the succession planning committee and kind of helped set up their initial goals and targets and kind of plan for succession planning in the organization, which was a really great experience. And then, as I mentioned, this year, I'm still interning at the department, DHHS, working on a really cool project analyzing access to behavioral health services for Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. So I've spent a lot of time kind of continuing to get more work experience during the year. And then from a club and organization perspective, I'm involved in the Healthcare and Life Sciences Club at the School of Management, also in Out of Office, which is the LGBTQ organization, and then SOM United, which is our soccer club, which has been super fun as well. So that's some of the things I'm involved in.
And, the options are really broad for anybody. So, I mean, they're giving you just the honest options that they've chosen, but a lot of people do a whole bunch of stuff. So just keep that in mind. Somebody asked about the curriculum between the accelerated and the 3-year. And there's this assumption in that question about whether the MPH portion is healthcare management, and that is not true. So the MPH at the School of Public Health is a core curriculum that every student takes. The accelerated students take some of that core over the summer, and they take the remainder of the core during their second year here. But all students take the same core curriculum in the School of Public Health. All students take the same core curriculum in the School of Management. And then as part of your concentration, you take required classes, some of which have options to them. And in the healthcare management program, those requirements include things like accounting, finance, include marketing management, competitive strategy, negotiations, healthcare operations, a survey class in healthcare, and a capstone class. So, and then a life science option and a social enterprise option. If you're in the joint degree program, some of those you can waive out of the MPH side of those options. You do not have to take accounting, finance again, because you've already taken it in the MBA program. You also are allowed to waive out of marketing management because you've already taken your consumer class. So there are areas where you actually gain efficiencies by doing the healthcare management concentration, which where you would not have those quote efficiencies if you were doing a different concentration. Okay, the next question I'm looking at, and then I will go to other, I have a long list of questions, so I don't know if everybody's following all the questions that I'm looking at, but I have both direct message questions and I have messages in the Q&A, and I'm going to make sure I hit all of them. Somebody is a college senior and about to apply for the Silver Scholar program and the MPH, which is basically doing a joint degree program. For the first time, we have a student in the joint degree 2-year accelerated who is in fact coming through the Silver Scholar route. It's a very unusual pathway to do because the Silver Scholar program almost by definition requires that you come straight out of college, whereas the dual accelerated program and most MBA spots in general will be requiring you to have some work experience. So it's a very unusual pathway. But I do believe the person who's asking the question is asking whether you're allowed to do Silver Scholar with the MPH and biostatistics. And I'm not sure that that's possible, but I'm not certain it's not. So I would ask the admissions office at the School of Public Health about that separately. So let me just knock that off. Okay. So this is a question for all three of you, and I'll toss it out to you. Chloe Yang is asking, what are some considerations and when it may be more beneficial for me to pursue both degrees and vice versa? Why might you not want to do it? Do you want to answer why you felt that doing both degrees was critical to you, and maybe even tell us that if you were going to sacrifice one degree, would it have been the MPH? Would it have been the MBA? What do you think? Let's start with Ben this time.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned a little bit of my reasoning before in terms of wanting to get more experience in the public policy side. I think that's something that you definitely get at the School of Public Health that you may not get as much of at the School of Management. So for me, I knew that I was going to get an MBA, so that doing both together was really important to get that balance of kind of like the healthcare finance and economics side at the School of Management, and then the more like policy, health systems understanding at the School of Public Health. I think being able to do both was something that made the decision a lot easier for me, because I knew that I was doing the MBA already, but doing both in the same time frame, you know, seemed like a really great opportunity. But yeah, I think depending what path you want to take, if you know, I would say if you want to go into biostatistics or epidemiology, something like that, maybe the MPH might be sufficient. Or if you want to go into, you know, and healthcare investment banking, for example, maybe the MBA would be sufficient. But if you want to have a career that kind of navigates both, I think the dual degree is a good option.
Melanie?
Yeah, I could chime in. So I think for me, it differs based on the levers Ben mentioned, but I think some of mine, happen to be, kind of what your career interests want to be after school, and then also like what you've done previously in your work experience. So for me, when I was looking at graduate school programs, I was pretty sure an MBA, given that I had worked, 4 years beforehand, was going to be the degree that really accelerated me forward from a kind of financial and, leadership perspective. Because of, the work I had done and the people that were working in roles that I wanted, frankly. And, the decision to do the dual degree, it was really kind of a reason of why Yale for me, because a lot of the courses that I wanted to take, the things that interested me, really did overlap with the degree program. So although we do, at times sacrifice some flexibility in other electives, I feel like I've been able to take most of, all of the things I could want in graduate school. So, that was really kind of how I came about it.
Bill?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I honestly see kind of the two together as being greater than the sum of their parts. I don't think I could be doing, well, let me rephrase that. I could be doing what I'm doing now with only the MBA that I started with, but I don't think I could do it responsibly. And I think especially when you're thinking about new models in healthcare, some of the most valuable courses I've taken have been in health systems and policy, health equity and social justice, right? Really thinking about what is the unique nature of a quite broken healthcare system in this country, and how do we ensure that we have a commitment to doing no harm and benefiting society. I think the MPH side of that is so absolutely critical. But then of course, having that balance with some of the fundamentals of business provides with the foundation. So I see the two of them together as kind of greater than the sum of their parts.
Great, thank you. I skipped over a question, so I just want to quickly go back. Is there considerable overlap in the quantitative core curriculum between the two degrees for those pursuing the dual degree program? So there's overlap between the healthcare management program and the School of Management's MBA program. There's relatively little overlap between the MPH core and the MBA core. So I think that hopefully answers that question. We have a very robust quantitative component to the program from both schools' point of view. Mike is someone who I've met in a separate webinar about the School of Public Health, and he's wanting to pivot from his clinical nursing career into healthcare policy, and interested in nursing health informatics and policy studies around equity and outcomes, which are things that, by the way, are deeply entrenched in our students' minds and things that they pursue. So the question is the fit. I wanted to know if the Yale MBA MPH combination gives me an opportunity to explore these areas of concentration. Can you share what are some of the experiences at Yale that help to achieve your goals? So none of the three of you come from a clinical background, but I think Hill has her own personal experiences to reflect on. And so maybe I'll start with Hill here and see if you can reflect on, whether the combination of the degrees will serve Mike's interests in pivoting from a nursing career into one that looks at policy outcomes and health equity.
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. And, thank you for all the work you've done in a nursing career. I have such a huge admiration for folks who pursue that path. I think one of the things that's very interesting about Yale is that we do also have a wonderful nursing community with the School of Nursing. And so I've gotten to interface with those folks and it's quite a wonderful program. But yeah, I think I can also just speak from the perspective of pivoting and thinking about a new interest. And I have found the combination of the two programs to be incredibly valuable from that perspective. I think that, I'll make Howie blush here, but the community that Howie has built is one that will really embrace you in terms of helping you to find and navigate a new direction in healthcare, whether that's coming from the folks at Yale New Haven, whether it's the professors, whether it's your classmates. You will find folks both on your old path that will be great to connect with, but also on these new paths that will want to help you. And that is certainly what I have found, navigating the transition from being a patient really and a patient advocate to a healthcare professional.
Thank you. Do others want to comment on that?
I would just add in general, when people ask about exploring interests that they have in any area of healthcare in this program, I think the answer is kind of always yes. I think one of the great things is the flexibility, both in terms of coursework and electives you can take at the School of Management and the School of Public Health, and also across all of Yale, gives you so many opportunities to explore whatever area you're interested in. And then the extracurriculars give you even more opportunity. You're involved in the healthcare conference or the healthcare life sciences club, you can kind of chart those paths in whatever direction that you want. So I would just add that in terms of exploring interests in general.
Thank you. And Melanie, anything?
No, I think everyone else covered it. I would just say too, people like Howie, other, admissions representatives, I think are really, there to help kind of, answer questions that help kind of make this decision for you. I know a lot of clinicians at Yale. We took some great courses with people in the advanced professional MPH degree, which is a one-year degree program. So, I think there's lots of different options, and there's not one bad choice, but there's people that can kind of help answer other degree programs as well.
Thank you. I've been rapidly trying to answer with text some of the questions, so hopefully that's helping whittle down the questions. I'm going to go back to reading some to you now. Within the accelerated program, you're doing one internship. What are the internships options that are available to dual degree students, and do they fulfill the requirements of both the MPH and the MBA? I know what the technical answer is to that, but I want from the three of you, as briefly as you can, to just address whether you were able to fulfill the requirements of both degrees doing one internship. Let's start with Ben.
Yeah, so I guess one component is you do have to do some sort of practicum or internship experience as a formal requirement. And so some people choose to use their summer internship to fulfill that. It has to have kind of a public health outreach component. So my work at the Department of Health and Human Services did fulfill that. But I would say other folks do their practicum through a more academic setting, through like a course or something in the semester. And that kind of frees you up to do anything you want in your internship. So we have, even in our cohort of like 6 or 7, we have a pretty wide range of what folks did with their internship, from pharmaceuticals to small startups to things in the public sector. There's kind of a wide range of options. So yes, you can definitely fill the requirements of your internship, or you can explore any area that you're interested in.
Let me stop you there for 1 second, since Mike had a second question related to that. For those of you that have done the practicum, could you give us a quick sentence or so about like how you chose the practicum and how it fit into your goals?
Sure, I did the practicum last year, so I'm happy to speak to it. So these are optional. I used it. My internship, just kind of answer to build off the question Ben answered. I could have used my internship for my APE, my applied practical experience requirement, but I decided a practicum is something I wanted to do anyway. So I think there's no worry about fulfilling the requirement. But early, I would say at the end of the fall semester, my first year, we got an email, if we were interested in looking at the different projects that we could do through a practicum process. So I believe there's a coordinator that helps really match students with different organizations, a lot at Yale New Haven, but others in kind of public health community health clinics around Connecticut. So we had a list of projects with one-page descriptions. And then we went through a pseudo application process to connect and interview with the different leaders that we'd be working with for 5 to 6 months. So to also get a better understanding of the project and what you'd be working on. So it was a pretty thoughtful, well structured process, and we were able to select our projects and then meet, I would say, like every other month during the time of the practicum to answer questions, to get support, and then leave with a final presentation of our deliverables to the academic group as well. It really fit with my goals because, as I mentioned, one of the things that I decided to pursue the dual degree with is my interest in, kind of changing how we finance healthcare to distribute better outcomes. So for me, I thought, a practical experience in value-based care was a great way to test out that experience. And, it proved to kind of confirm that for me. So, I'll just kind of leave that there a little bit about the practicum, but happy to answer any other questions too.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that before I move on? I don't want to be cutting people off, but you'd be amazed at how many questions we actually have. So I'm just trying to get through as many as we can. And I am continually answering them in the chats as well. I'd like to know if I can do the health policy concentration and global health in the 2-year accelerated dual degree. So that's only possible to do in the 3-year dual degree. You can do global health in the 2-year dual degree. You can't do the health policy concentration in the 2-year dual degree. So hopefully that answers that question. Somebody's asking the distinction between the 2-year and the 3-year, and I think we've covered that, but if we haven't done that adequately, please email us and we'll try to go back to that. But I think we answered that before. It is helpful to us. The question is, do we have to indicate that you're applying to the joint in the essays? You don't have to do that in the essays, but we ask that you indicate that in the application. There's space for you to indicate that, and that helps us keep track of you. The essay should really address the specific reasons that you're applying to that specific school, because it is certainly possible that you will only be admitted to one school or the other, and we want you to have your best foot forward on that. So that's that. I'm going to read this one aloud because this is a positive note to Hill. Hill, I really resonated with your comment a few questions ago that the MPH allowed you to navigate your business responsibly. I would love to hear more about specific eye-opening experiences or stories you've had at Yale, either at the School of Public Health or the School of Management, that have helped mold your understanding of the challenges facing the American healthcare system. That's a great question.
Yeah, no, that is such a powerful question, and thank you. So a couple of answers to this. I think one is what you gain from the coursework in the degree, right? So as Howie mentioned, there is the core MPH curriculum. You will be focused on an entire class focused on health equity and social justice. Within our epidemiology class, you will be talking about healthcare disparities at length. We had a wonderful class with a professor, Mark Schlesinger, who really outlined the bones of the American healthcare system, right? The arc of the history, both positive and negative, that really laid that all out. So in the curriculum, it's there. And then also just being on campus, there will be lots of events and talks to participate in, both in the School of Public Health around disparities and around improving the system, but also, for example, we have the Solomon Center, which is housed out of the law school. I'm a fellow there this year, and they have a number of talks around issues, including, reproductive justice and others. So there is no shortage, and this is something I love about YSPH, there is no shortage of people really willing to take a stand and, really think about how we can break down disparities and kind of recreate our system. So never a shortage of finding folks who want to talk about that.
Thank you very much. I have a few more questions from the chat box, and we're really making good progress. And by the way, those of you that are sending thanks and appreciation, I just want to extend that to the panel as well. We really appreciate, getting that type of feedback. How are you able, we'll go for all three of you on this, how are you able to cope with the intensity of a dual degree? How do you juggle academics, recruiting, social life, and clubs? Why don't we start with Melanie, since I keep leaving her for last? So why don't we go with that first, Melanie?
Yeah, I think, it's not, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think it's not without difficulty. There's so many, to Hill's point, there's so many amazing people to connect with. There's so many clubs and organizations doing amazing things. I think it's just really a balance of, the time you can commit, setting aside time for academics in your coursework and making sure, you're picking a few things extracurricularly that you're going to spend, the majority of those hours on. There's so many clubs doing cool things. And sometimes, the ability what I can give to it is, attending a great speaker, once or twice a year when they bring someone on campus. So I think really it's just kind of a lot of, internal administrative project management of your schedule. But, I wouldn't say that I am any more or less busy than any other, School of Management student, because everyone is kind of, balancing their coursework with a variety of extracurriculars.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just say, I think too, the past few years have made me realize I'm very lucky to be at this particular school. I am juggling all of those things, and I am still an active cancer patient, and I have to go back to Boston every few months. And I have just found the faculty and the administration to be so open and accommodating to, I've spoken with multiple folks in different situations. If you express that things are overwhelming, accommodations will be made, and it is a thoughtful community in that way.
Great. Ben?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what both of you said, but the program is rigorous, but it's not in the sense of, you're at the library every night till midnight. It's more in the sense of trade-offs. You have a lot of requirements that you have to fill. So unlike other SOM students who can kind of have full flexibility of electives, we do have a more guided path. So I think in that sense, it's a little bit tougher, but I don't think it's a matter of like really studying so much as deciding where you spend your valuable time here, because there's so many great opportunities.
We are right at the end right now, so I'm going to ask each of you for one sentence. What's your best piece of advice for people who are applying to our programs? And why don't we start again with Melanie?
Yeah, sure. Although it can be a stressful time to be thinking about admissions, I'd really implore you to be reflective. It's a cool process to be able to journal and write about, what you've done beforehand, what you want to do. I think to the extent you can be really thoughtful and inward facing about, kind of those goals and values that you have. One that will come through really well, but it will also, help guide you in whatever you do next. So I encourage you to do that.
Ben or Hill?
Sure, I can go. I think the biggest thing, both in the application process and in the time leading up to when you start graduate school, is being really intentional about what you want to get out of it. I think if you go through that reflective process, like Melanie said, then you'll make a better use of your time in graduate school, and that'll come through in the admissions process as well. If you have a clear idea of what you want to do and how you'll accomplish it, obviously you'll explore new things and maybe your path will change. But if you go in with kind of clear ideas of what you want to get involved in, how you want to use your time, I think it really helps avoid some of the stress that comes with, the flood of opportunities that arrive once you start. And I think that, the admissions process is a great place to start thinking about those things.
Thank you. And Hill, final word?
Yeah, I think, when you go to hit submit, before you do, just looking at your application and making sure it really reflects you, the person, not just you, the resume. I'm not in admissions, but my understanding is that there's a real kind of emphasis put on you, the person. So
thank you all for participating in this. Thanks, to our audience for attending. We will, as I understand it, be posting this online. Anybody who's registered for this should be receiving a link to that. And again, thank you all for attending, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Good luck.